During the first day of Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings, there was one specific Republican who made a statement that really stood out to me. Flake, Senator Jeff Flake, who has been highly critical of Trump, mentioned that he somewhat sides with Democrats on his concerns in regard to Kavanaugh. So first, I'm gonna read you something that Move On tweeted because it has a lot to do with Jeff Flake's concerns. They tweeted a quote by Kavanaugh, and it goes as follows: "The country wants the president to be one of us, who bears the same responsibilities of citizenship that all share. But I believe that the president should be excused from some of the burdens of ordinary citizenship while serving in office." So Brett Kavanaugh was very clear in saying that he believes the president shouldn't have to deal with indictments and criminal investigations while he is serving in office. That is something that does not sit well with Democrats, and it also doesn't sit well with Republican Senator Jeff Flake. So Jeff Flake said the following during the confirmation hearing, quote, "Now, I know it has been brought up today that a lot of the concern on the other side of the aisle stems from the concern of an administration that doesn't seem to understand and appreciate separation of powers and the rule of law. I have that concern as well. If you just look at what was said just yesterday by the president, I think it's very concerning." So Senator Flake was specifically referencing a tweet by Trump, and the tweet that Trump put out was this: "Two long-running Obama-era investigations of two very popular Republican congressmen were brought to a well-publicized charge just ahead of the midterms by Jeff Sessions' Justice Department. Two easy wins now in doubt because there is not enough time. Good job, Jeff." So Trump has been attacking Jeff Sessions for refusing to do Trump's bidding, right? And Jeff Flake does not think that's okay. Democrats don't think that's okay. So that's the reason why Jeff Flake brought this up. The final part of his statement to Kavanaugh goes as follows: "Jeff Sessions has resisted pressure from the president to punish his enemies and relieve pressure on his friends. And many of the questions that you will get on the other side of the aisle and from me will be how you view that relationship, where you believe the Article 1 powers end and Article 2 powers of the administration begin."
So let me be clear about Kavanaugh's record and why this is so important and why I think this is one of the actual fruitful ways of going after this nominee. So, and I'll talk about the unfruitful ways as well. So he has three problems at a minimum, and one is about executive power. Now, Kavanaugh is the guy who was on Ken Starr's team investigating Bill Clinton. He was actually one of their biggest hatchet men. He was known as a political operative, and so the two things he pushed for was to investigate Vince Foster's suicide, after there had already been 5 investigations of it. The FBI had been very clear that it was a suicide, and Kavanaugh fed into the conspiracy theories and said, no, maybe Vince Foster was murdered by the Clintons. So cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. We're looking at this guy like he's a rational person, and everybody's talking about, oh, he's an intellectual. No, he believed that Vince Foster might have been murdered by the Clintons. He's a total lunatic in that regard, okay? So then he went on to aggressively grill Bill Clinton about his sex life. He sent him questions about what kind of oral sex he received. It was incredibly dirty. He then turns around afterwards and goes, no, we should never question any president.
But he
well,
said that
isn't that goddamn convenient?
And he said that during the Bush administration.
While he was serving for the Bush administration.
Exactly.
Now, he just gone through that term. And so after he goes after Clinton the most personal ways possible, then he works for Bush, and then he comes up with the opinion, oh golly gee, we shouldn't bother presidents. Are you kidding me? You were involved in the worst, most egregious case of that. But in the case of Donald Trump, is that one of the reasons he picked him? One of the few judges in the country who raised his hand and said, you should not question the president or bring any charges against them while he's president. That's basically raising your hand saying, Donald Trump, I will be corrupt for you. Now look, he didn't do it at the time of Trump. I want to be clear about that, and we always want to give you the right facts here, okay? But when Trump goes to look for a judge, out of all the judges in the country, there's a couple who say that the president shouldn't be bothered while he's in office. You shouldn't even ask him questions about anything he might have done wrong. Kavanaugh already raised his hand after being the exact opposite in real life.
Also,
right?
Remember, Mitch McConnell did not want Brett Kavanaugh to be Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee because of the fact that Brett Kavanaugh has such a long history, long past, and there are countless documents that Democrats can then look to question Kavanaugh and just kind of lengthen the process of these confirmation hearings. So Trump went against what what McConnell wanted and went with Kavanaugh. Why? Because Trump has some sort of affection or admiration for Kavanaugh? You think he knew who Kavanaugh was prior to all this going on? No, he was looking for an individual who would be on his side should the Supreme Court ever weigh on what's going on with all of these investigations.
So there's three things that Trump cared about. He wanted to overturn Roe versus Wade so he can get evangelicals to vote for him in record numbers like they did in 2016. But a lot of judges fit that bill, a lot of them. He wanted people who were going to serve his Republican donors, but there's a ton of right-wing judges who vote with corporations almost no matter what. Kavanaugh is among them, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there's only a couple of judges in the country who fit the first two descriptions and also say the president is basically above the law. Kavanaugh's position is, after he leaves office, then maybe you could do an investigation of him at that point, which will be incredibly late with stale evidence. And he's a lawyer, he knows that. That means in essence, you would put somebody on the Supreme Court who doesn't really believe in our system of government, who doesn't believe in checks and balances, says the president should never be checked above the law. Putting that guy in the Supreme Court on the issue of executive power alone is a danger to our democracy. That's a real issue. When the Democrats complain about the documents that weren't sent to them in time, they're right, and it is maddening. It was a dirty political trick of the Republicans. But overall, that's not gonna resonate enough with the American people. They're not gonna worry about documents. That's why the Republicans did it at the last minute, because they knew that that wouldn't resonate. But making the president above the law is incredibly important. The other two things that they can attack him on rightfully is corporate power. In the case of SeaWorld, a person dies. He says basically, to summarize, the employee, I don't think has rights to safety and health. Sad day for them. They must bow their heads to whatever corporation they work for. And so, of course, Republican donors love that. Trump loves that, but the American people don't love that. They don't want to be killed at work. And then have a Supreme Court judge says, sad day for you. You shouldn't have signed up for it. Corporations can do anything they want. The third thing, which Democrats definitely will not get into, but absolutely should, is Citizens United. This guy clerked for Kennedy. Kennedy wrote Citizens United. It was one of the worst Supreme Court decisions in American history. Make him answer the questions. Do you believe a corporation is a human being? Go ahead, raise your hand, because he's going to. He's going to say, well, they're people, they legally have the same rights as people. Actually, they argue that they have more rights than human beings, but at least make him say it. American people don't believe that. They think it's absolutely insane to say that corporations are people. And secondly, do they have unlimited rights to so-called speech, which the Supreme Court has said is money? In other words, they can just give any amount of money they want through campaign expenditures or independent expenditures. In other words, legally bribe our politicians. Are you in favor of that? And he's gonna say yes, because he's definitely in favor of Citizens United. He's not gonna say, oh, Kennedy made the wrong decision. There's no way he's gonna say that. And the country hates Citizens United. Republican voters don't like that corruption. Make him answer those questions. Two easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.